Drop the boy, now! She screamed it before her brain caught up. 94 pounds, barefoot, standing in a truck stop alley at 11 o'clock at night, screaming at a cop who had a 13-year-old pinned against a wall by his throat. Officer Ryan Mercer turned, badge glinting, blood on his knuckles, the boy's blood. Kendra Holloway had no weapon, no phone, no one coming to save her, just a $6 disposable camera and 4 photographs that would destroy a decorated officer, expose a cartel empire, and bring 200 Hell's Angels roaring out of the darkness to protect a homeless girl the world had already forgotten. Subscribe now and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Kendra Holloway pressed her spine against the metal dumpster wall and stopped breathing. 20 feet away, through a gap in the chain-link fence, a man in a Tucson PD uniform had a boy jammed against brick. The kid's feet weren't touching the ground. Blood ran from his nose in a dark line, pooling on the concrete beneath him. His shattered phone lay 3 feet to the left, screen cracked into a spiderweb pattern. The cop's forearm was crushing the boy's windpipe. "You say one word," the cop said, his voice low, almost casual, like he was ordering coffee. "And I promise you, your daddy goes away for 20 years. Manufacturing, distribution, conspiracy. I'll stack charges so high he'll never see daylight again." The boy choked, tried to speak, couldn't. "And you?" The cop leaned closer. "You'll end up in the system, foster care, group homes. You know what happens to kids in group homes? Nobody comes looking for you. Nobody cares. You just disappear." Kendra's hands were shaking so badly she had to clamp them against her thighs to stop the trembling. She knew exactly what happened in group homes. She'd lived it. 7 placements in 11 years. 3 of them bad. 1 of them, she didn't think about that one anymore. The cop released the boy, just opened his forearm and let him drop. The kid crumpled, caught himself on his hands and knees, gagging, spitting blood. "Get up." The boy struggled to his feet, swayed. "Here's what happens now. You walk back inside. You tell your daddy you fell. Clumsy kid, happens all the time. And you forget you ever saw me tonight. You forget the money. You forget the car. You forget everything." The boy nodded, barely. "Good boy." The cop stepped back, checked his phone, turned his body slightly away from the alley. Kendra's fingers found the disposable camera in her backpack. She didn't decide to grab it. Her hand just moved, the way your hand grabs a railing when you're falling. Instinct, not thought. She raised it to the gap in the fence, framed the shot. The cop in full uniform, badge catching the security light, the boy's blood on the concrete, the smashed phone. She pressed the shutter. Flash! The sound hit the quiet alley like a firecracker. White light splashed across the brick wall, the cop's face, the bloody concrete, everything for 1 frozen second. The cop's head snapped toward the fence. "Who's there?" Kendra didn't think. She ran. Out of the enclosure, around the corner, her worn-out sneakers slapping asphalt. Behind her, the cop was already moving. "Stop! Police! I said stop!" She cut between 2 18-wheelers parked side by side, dove under the trailer on the right, pressed herself flat against the ground, the asphalt still radiating heat from the day, hot enough to sting her bare arms. She could hear him, boots on concrete, methodical, getting closer. "I know you're out here." His voice carried the calm authority of a man who was used to people obeying him. "Come on out, let's talk about this. Make it easy on yourself." His boots appeared 10 feet away, black leather, polished. He was checking between trucks, one by one, working his way down the row. 8 feet, 6. Kendra pressed her face against the asphalt and forced herself to breathe through her nose, silently, the way she'd learned in foster homes where being heard at night meant being found. "Cole, Mercer, you out here?" A different voice from the truck stop entrance. The boots stopped. Yeah, thought I heard something. Probably a coyote. Dispatch needs you. Domestic on Route 77. They're calling twice. A pause. Kendra could see the boots turning, the weight shifting. Copy that. The boots walked away. She counted to 300. 5 minutes. Then she crawled out from under the truck, retrieved her backpack from the dumpster enclosure, shoved the camera deep inside, wrapped in her cleanest t-shirt, 4 photos taken. Evidence if she survived long enough to use it. She was heading for the road, for darkness, for anywhere that wasn't here when she heard it. Crying. Not loud, not dramatic, the quiet, stifled crying of someone trying very hard not to make a sound. The boy was sitting on the curb near the truck stop entrance. Hunched over, arms wrapped around his ribs, blood still dripping from his chin onto his black hoodie. He was rocking slightly, the way hurt kids do when there's nobody coming to hold them. Kendra should have kept walking. Every rule she'd built over 6 months of surviving on the streets said the same thing. Don't get involved. Don't be seen. Don't exist. A trucker walked past the boy, glanced down, kept going. A woman with 2 kids hurried past, pulling her children closer, walking faster. A man in a business shirt looked, frowned, decided it wasn't his problem. Nobody stopped. Nobody knelt down. Nobody asked. The same way nobody had stopped for Kendra in 6 months. The same way people walked past her like she was part of the sidewalk, like homelessness was contagious, like if they looked too long they might catch whatever she had. She found herself moving toward the boy before she'd made any conscious decision to do so. Hey, her voice came out rough. She hadn't spoken to another person in 4 days. The boy looked up. 13, maybe. Light brown hair stuck to his forehead with sweat and blood. Brown eyes wide with pain and fear. He wore a silver chain around his neck with some kind of pendant she couldn't make out. You okay? Kendra asked, and immediately felt stupid. Obviously, he wasn't okay. He tried to stand, his legs buckled. I need my dad. He's inside. Trucker's lounge. You're bleeding bad. We should call? No. The word came out sharp, almost a scream. No cops, please, no cops. His breath hitched. He said, if I tell anyone, he said, I know what he said. Kendra knelt beside him. I was behind the dumpsters. I saw everything. The boy's eyes went wide. You saw? I saw. She pulled a t-shirt from her backpack. It was wrinkled and not exactly clean, but it was better than nothing. Here, for your nose. He took it, pressed it to his face, winced. Did he see you? He heard my camera flash, chased me, but I don't think he saw my face. Camera? The boy lowered the shirt, his eyes locked onto hers with sudden, fierce intensity. You took pictures? 4, before the flash gave me away. He stared at her for 3 seconds. Then something changed in his face, something that looked like hope crashing into disbelief. Do you know what you just did? Probably something incredibly stupid. No, he almost laughed. It came out as a wet, bloody sound. No, you might have saved my life. And my dad's. He winced, grabbed his ribs. Can you help me inside? I need to find my father. Jackson Brooks. Goes by Hawk. He'll be wearing a leather vest. He paused. Hell's Angels patch. Kendra went very still. Your dad's a Hell's Angel? Vice President, Tucson chapter. She could have walked away right then. Should have, maybe. A homeless girl with no ID, no address, no legal existence. The last thing she needed was involvement with an outlaw motorcycle club. But TJ was swaying on his feet, and blood was soaking through the shirt pressed to his face, and his eyes were asking her for help, the same way her eyes had asked strangers for help 100 times over the past 6 months. The same way nobody had ever answered. Okay, Kendra said, lean on me. He did. She was 94 pounds, and he was maybe 110, and together they made one barely functional person. They limped toward the truck stop entrance. Every eye in the parking lot tracked them, the filthy, homeless girl and the bleeding kid, but nobody moved to help. Kendra pushed through the glass doors. The air conditioning hit her like a wall of ice. Her heat-exhausted body reacted violently, goosebumps, shivering, a wave of dizziness that nearly took her down. Trucker's Lounge, TJ whispered. Left. 20 tables, maybe 40 people. Truck drivers eating late dinners. A family with sleeping kids. A few motorcyclists in a corner booth. And in the far back corner, 6 men in black leather vests. Death head patches. Bottom rocker. Tucson. Dad, TJ's voice cracked. That's my dad. The man he pointed to was 6'2", broad shoulders, tattoo sleeves down both arms, beard trimmed close. 43, maybe 45. He was mid-sentence, coffee cup raised, laughing at something one of the brothers had said. Then he saw TJ. The coffee cup hit the table so hard it shattered. Jackson Hawk Brooks covered 20 feet in what felt like one step. He dropped to his knees in front of his son, hands on TJ's shoulders, scanning the blood, the swelling, the way the boy held his ribs. TJ, Jesus Christ! His voice broke on the second word. What happened? Who did this to you? Dad, TJ's legs gave out completely. 6 months of adrenaline collapsed at once. His father caught him, pulled him close, held him the way you hold something precious, unbreakable. Kendra watched, and something inside her chest cracked open. She hadn't been held like that, hadn't been held at all. In so long, she'd forgotten what it looked like. A father terrified for his child, love so raw it hurt to witness. Who? Hawk's voice shifted. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something colder, something dangerous. TJ, who hurt you? Officer Mercer. TJ was crying now, the words coming in gasps. The cop, the one from the rally last month. He's dirty, Dad. I saw him in the parking lot taking money, a stack of cash from a guy in a black Escalade. He saw me watching. He grabbed me, dragged me into the alley. He said, the boy's voice broke entirely. He said he'd make you disappear, said he'd put me in the system, said nobody would believe a biker's kid over a decorated cop. The 5 other Hells Angels were already on their feet, already forming a wall around Hawk and TJ. Hawk's jaw was clenched so tight, the muscles in his neck stood out like cables. His eyes went to Kendra. Who are you? Nobody, I helped him walk inside. You're bleeding. Kendra looked down. TJ's blood had soaked through her shirt. It's his, not mine. I was nearby. I saw what happened. Nearby where? TJ answered before she could. She was in the dumpster area, Dad. She took pictures, 4 of them, of Mercer beating me. The air in the room changed. Every Hells Angel went absolutely still. The kind of stillness that comes right before something very big moves very fast. Hawk's eyes locked onto Kendra. Brown eyes, hard, assessing, but underneath the hardness, something desperate. You took pictures, he said slowly, of a Tucson police officer assaulting my son. Yeah, I had a camera, disposable. I didn't plan it, Where's the camera? Kendra hesitated. 6 months of survival instinct fired at once. Trust no one, give nothing away, protect yourself because nobody else will. But TJ was looking at her with those blood-streaked eyes that said, please. And Hawk was kneeling on a truck stop floor, holding his beaten child, asking for the one thing that might protect his family. She pulled the disposable camera from her backpack and held it out. Hawk didn't take it right away. He studied her, really studied her, the way people hadn't looked at her in 6 months. He saw the sunburned skin peeling on her shoulders, the bones visible in her wrists, the dirty blonde hair matted with sweat and dust, the backpack that held every single thing she owned in the world. How long you been on the streets? His voice changed, softer now. 6 months. You got family? Friends? Somewhere to go tonight? No. No to all three? No to all three. Hawk's eyes didn't leave hers. You saw my son getting beaten by a cop. You were hiding behind a dumpster with nobody to protect you, nothing to gain, everything to lose. And you took pictures. Yes. Why? The question was so simple and so enormous that Kendra almost couldn't answer it. Why? Because she'd spent 7 years in foster care, watching adults hurt children and doing nothing because she was too small, too young, too powerless. Because she'd spent 6 months watching the world walk past suffering like it was invisible. Because she was tired of being the one who looked away. Because nobody helped me, she said, and I'm tired of being the person who walks past. For 5 seconds, nobody in that corner moved. Then Hawk stood. He held TJ with one arm, extended his other hand to Kendra. Not for the camera, for her. Give me the camera. I need to get it developed. Then I need to know everything you saw, everything you heard, every detail. He paused. And Kendra, you're not going back out there tonight. Not behind any dumpster, not behind any gas station. You're coming with us. I don't need... Yeah, you do. His voice was firm, but not harsh. You just painted a target on your own back. Mercer heard that flash. He knows someone saw him. If he finds you before we handle this, you'll disappear the same way his other witnesses disappeared. He let that sink in. Club protection. 24 hours a day until this is over. You understand what I'm telling you? Kendra understood. She just couldn't believe it. 6 months of being invisible. 6 months of not mattering to a single person on Earth. And now a room full of Hell's Angels was offering to protect her because she'd pressed a button on a $6 camera. Blood debt, Hawk said. You saved my son's life tonight. That's not something we forget. That's not something we repay and move on. That means you're ours now. Family. TJ reached out and grabbed Kendra's hand. His fingers were sticky with blood, and his grip was weak, but he held on. Please, TJ said, stay. And Kendra Holloway, 19 years old, 94 pounds, owner of nothing but a backpack and 4 photographs that could destroy a cop's empire, looked at this bleeding boy and his terrified father, and the circle of leather-clad men who were watching her like she was something worth protecting. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Hawk nodded once, turned to the brothers. Reaper, get my bike. We're taking TJ to St. Mary's. Wire, stay here. Get contact info from Kendra. Get her food, water, whatever she needs. Ghost, call Priest. Tell him we need church, emergency, every brother available, every single one. The men moved instantly, no hesitation, no questions, just action. Hawk looked back at Kendra one more time. You did something tonight that most people wouldn't do in a lifetime. You stood up. And now 200 men are going to stand up with you. He carried TJ toward the exit. The boy looked back over his father's shoulder at Kendra, and even through the pain and the blood and the fear, he mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Wire. Danny Reeves, 32, lean, glasses under his bandana, stepped up beside Kendra. You hungry? Starving. When's the last time you ate? Day before yesterday, maybe. I don't remember. Wire's jaw tightened. Come on, let's fix that. And while you eat, you're going to tell me everything about Officer Ryan Mercer, because that man just made the worst mistake of his career. What's that? Wire looked at her, and for the first time in 6 months, someone smiled at Kendra Holloway like she mattered. He messed with one of ours, and he left a witness alive. Wire set a plate of eggs, bacon, toast, and a large orange juice in front of Kendra at the truck stop counter. She stared at it like it was a hallucination. Eat, Wire said, slowly. Your stomach's probably the size of a golf ball right now. You inhale that, you'll throw it all up. Kendra picked up the fork. Her hand was shaking. She took one bite of scrambled eggs and her eyes closed involuntarily. Warm food. Real food. Not a half-eaten sandwich from a gas station trash can. Not a granola bar stolen from a donation bin. Actual food that someone had put on a plate for her. Easy, Wire said, watching her. Small bites. I know how to eat. You know how to survive. Eating's different. Take your time. She took another bite, then another. The orange juice was so cold it hurt her teeth, and she didn't care. She drank half the glass in one pull. Wire opened his laptop on the counter beside her. Okay, Kendra, tell me about Mercer. Everything. Start from the beginning. I already told you what I saw. You told me the headline. I need the whole paper. What time did you first hear voices? What direction were they coming from? What exactly did Mercer say? Not the gist, the actual words. What was the boy wearing? What did the guy in the Escalade look like? How long between each photo you took? Kendra set her fork down. Why does all that matter? Wire looked at her over his glasses. Because right now, you're the only witness to a felony assault committed by a decorated police officer who has connections to one of the most dangerous cartels in the Southwest. Your memory is evidence, and evidence wins cases, but only if it's detailed, specific, and airtight. So, he positioned his fingers over the keyboard. What time did you first hear voices? 10:51, maybe 10:52. I check the time on the truck stop clock every night before I settle in. It was 10:47 when I went behind the dumpsters. A few minutes later, I heard them. Heard what first? A sound, like meat hitting a counter, that heavy, flat sound. Kendra swallowed. Then a kid crying out, not screaming, more like the air getting knocked out of him. Wire typed without looking at the keyboard. Then what? I looked through the fence, the gap between the post and the chain link near the bottom. That's when I saw Mercer. He had the boy against the wall, his forearm across his throat. The boy's feet were off the ground. You could see his badge, his uniform, clearly. The security light was right above them. I could see everything. Badge number, name tag, the whole uniform. And his face. I could see his face clearly. Describe him. Tall, 6'1", maybe 6'2", athletic build, brown hair, short, military cut, clean-shaven, mid-30s. He had a scar on his left hand. I noticed it when he grabbed TJ's collar. Small scar, maybe 2 inches, across the knuckles. Wire stopped typing. You noticed a scar on his knuckles in the dark, from 20 feet away? I notice everything. When you're homeless, details keep you alive. Which security guard checks the parking lot at midnight? Which dumpster gets emptied on Tuesdays? Which trucker leaves food on the bench outside? You learn to see things other people miss, or you don't last. Wire studied her for a long moment. That's going to matter, Kendra. That level of detail is going to matter more than you know. They worked through her account for 45 minutes. Every word Mercer said, every sound TJ made, the sequence of photos, first the cash exchange evidence still on the ground, then Mercer's face in profile, then TJ with his phone raised, then Mercer advancing with his fist cocked. Wire asked her to repeat sections, challenged her on specifics, tested her consistency. She didn't waver, not once. One more thing, Wire said, closing the laptop. The man in the Escalade, the one who gave Mercer the money. You see him? Kendra paused. I didn't see the exchange. TJ told me about it. But when I was looking through the fence, right before I took the first photo, there was a black Escalade pulling out of the delivery alley. Tinted windows. I couldn't see the driver, but I got the plate. Wire went very still. You got the plate? Partial. First 4 characters. 7 Charlie Bravo 4. Arizona plate. I can't be sure about the rest. You memorized a license plate while watching a cop beat a kid? I told you, I notice everything. Wire pulled out his phone and typed the partial plate into a text message. Sent it. Hawk needs to know about this. That plate could connect Mercer directly to whoever's paying him. At 11:34, Wire's phone buzzed. He read the message and his expression shifted from focused to grim. Hospital update. TJ's got a mild concussion, broken nose, and a cracked rib. They're keeping him overnight. Kendra's stomach turned. She pushed the plate away. He's 13. Yeah. A cop did that to a 13-year-old kid. A cop did that to a 13-year-old kid, Wire repeated, because that kid saw something he shouldn't have. And that same cop would have done worse if you hadn't been behind those dumpsters. He paused. Hawk wants us at St. Mary's. We need to get those photos developed first. There's a 24-hour pharmacy on Speedway with a 1-hour photo lab. 1-hour photo still exists? In Tucson? Everything still exists. They drove Wire's truck to the pharmacy. Kendra sat in the passenger seat, holding the disposable camera in both hands like a grenade. Wire kept checking his mirrors. You think Mercer's looking for me? Kendra asked. I think Mercer's on a domestic call right now, which buys us time. But by morning, he's going to start thinking about that camera flash. He's going to start wondering who was behind that fence. And he's going to start looking. He didn't see my face. Doesn't matter. He'll check the truck stop security cameras. He'll ask around. Homeless girl who hangs around the dumpsters. Someone will talk. People always talk. Kendra stared out the window. Then I should run. Get out of Tucson. If he can't find me. If you run, those photos mean nothing. You're the witness, Kendra. Without your testimony connecting those images to what you saw and heard, they're just pictures of a cop standing in an alley. The photos prove what happened. You prove why it matters. She didn't answer. Wire pulled into the pharmacy parking lot. Stay in the truck. I'll handle this. Why can't I? Because if Mercer's smart, and dirty cops are always smart, he'll start canvassing pharmacies and photo labs by tomorrow. 1-hour photo, disposable camera, late night, that's a trail. The less people see your face tonight, the better. He took the camera and went inside. Kendra sat alone in the dark cab of the truck, watching the pharmacy's fluorescent glow through the windshield, and tried to understand how her life had pivoted so completely in the span of 2 hours. At 10:47 p.m., she'd been invisible, a ghost, a girl that society had looked through for 6 months like she was made of glass. At 12:34 a.m., she was a witness in a federal corruption case with a motorcycle club's protection and a target on her back. Wire came back 22 minutes later with a manila envelope. He didn't open it, drove straight to St. Mary's Hospital. Hawk was in the waiting room, sitting forward in his chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. He looked up when they walked in. His eyes went straight to the envelope. Sit down, Hawk said. Kendra sat. Wire sat beside her. He opened the envelope and slid 4 photographs onto the plastic chair between them. Hawk picked up the first photo. His hand was steady, but a vein in his temple was pulsing. Photo 1. Officer Ryan Mercer in full Tucson PD uniform, badge clearly visible, standing beside a black Escalade, a stack of cash in his right hand, the truck stop security light illuminating every detail. Photo 2. Mercer counting the bills, face in profile, the Escalade's license plate, partial but visible, in the background. Photo 3. TJ standing 20 feet behind Mercer, phone raised like he was recording, and Mercer's head turned, catching the boy in the act, the exact moment everything went wrong. Photo 4. Mercer advancing on TJ, right fist already pulled back. TJ stumbling backward, his face twisted with fear. A 13-year-old boy 1 second away from being beaten by a man who swore to protect him. Hawk stared at the 4th photo for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. That's my boy. Yeah, Wire said. That's my boy's face right before that son of a bitch hit him. Yeah, Hawk, it is. Hawk set the photo down gently, like it might shatter. He looked at Kendra. You took these? Yes. With a $6 camera from behind a chain-link fence in the dark. The security light was strong, and I was close enough. Hawk picked up photo 1 again. Wire, his badge number. Already got it, Running it now. The Escalade plate? Kendra got a partial. 7 Charlie Bravo 4. I've sent it to Ghost. He's running it through every database we have access to. Hawk's eyes came back to Kendra. Something had shifted in the way he looked at her. Not just gratitude anymore. Respect. You notice the license plate. I notice things. Yeah, you do. He put the photos back in the envelope carefully. Wire, what's the play? Wire leaned forward. These photos are federal prosecution-level evidence. We've got his face, his badge, the cash exchange, the witness, and the assault. All 4 shots. But photos alone won't bring him down. We need to know how deep this goes. A cop doesn't take one bribe. This is a pattern. So we dig. I've already started. Mercer makes $72,000 a year. But I pulled a few strings, don't ask how, and his banking activity doesn't match his salary. Not even close. In the last 24 months, he's deposited over $168,000 in cash. $9,000 a month, regular as rent, plus irregular deposits up to 15 grand. Hawk's expression didn't change, but his hands curled into fists on his knees. Cartel payroll. That's my read, and there's more. 8 arrests in the last 2 years where Mercer was the primary officer. All of them, every single one, were Hells Angels members or associates. All on charges that got dismissed or reduced. Ghost's arrest 14 months ago? Mercer was the arresting officer. Found 2 kilos in Ghost's saddlebag during a routine stop. Evidence disappeared from the locker a week later. Guess who was working the evidence room? Mercer. Mercer. Hawk stood up, walked 3 steps, stopped. He's been targeting us, planting evidence on our brothers to maintain his cover while cleaning for the cartel. That's what the data says. How many of our guys did time because of him? I'm still counting. Hawk turned to Kendra. You understand what you walked into tonight? This isn't just a dirty cop. This is a 3-year operation. Cartel money, planted evidence, false arrests. And the people getting hurt are the people sitting in this room. My brothers, my family, my son. Kendra met his eyes. I understand. Mercer's going to figure out someone took those photos. He's going to tear Tucson apart looking for the camera, the film, the witness. And when he finds out it's a 19-year-old homeless girl with no connections, no protection, no one who'll miss her, Hawk stopped himself, took a breath. That's why you're not leaving our sight until this is over. Hawk, Kendra said quietly, I've been on my own for 6 months. I've been on my own most of my life. I don't need. This isn't about what you need. This is about what's real. Mercer has made people disappear, Kendra. 2 witnesses in cartel cases. 1 found dead in the desert, 1 never found at all. You think he won't do the same to a homeless girl nobody's looking for? The words hit her like cold water. Nobody's looking for her. It was true. If she vanished tomorrow, no missing person report would be filed. No family would call the police. No employer would wonder where she was. She would simply stop existing, and the world would continue exactly as before. I'm calling church, Hawk said. 6 a.m., every brother in the state. Priest needs to see these photos, and he needs to meet you. Who's Priest? Victor Dalton, club president, former Marine. He's the one who decides what happens next. Hawk paused. And Kendra, when you walk into that room tomorrow morning, you're going to be standing in front of 200 men who will want to know every detail of what you saw. Can you do that? I told Wire everything already. Telling Wire is practice. Telling church is testimony. 200 brothers, all of them with families, some of them with kids TJ's age, all of them knowing that Mercer has been targeting this club for years. They're going to be angry. They're going to want blood. And you're going to have to stand there and make them understand that the way we destroy Mercer isn't with fists. It's with your photos, your testimony, and the truth. I can do that. You sure? Kendra looked at the envelope in Hawk's hands. 4 photos. 4 moments of courage that had already cost her everything. Her hiding spot, her invisibility, her safety. She had nothing left to lose. I stood behind a chain-link fence and took pictures of a cop who could have killed me, she said. I can talk to a room full of bikers. Hawk almost smiled. Almost. Get some rest. Wire will take you to the clubhouse. Doc's already setting up a room. You'll have a bed, a shower, food. Tomorrow morning, 6 sharp, you tell your story. Wire drove Kendra to the clubhouse, a converted warehouse on the south side behind an auto parts yard. He punched a code into a steel door and walked her through a hallway into a back room with a cot, a blanket, a pillow, and a bottle of water. Bathrooms down the hall, towels in the cabinet. Doc left clean clothes on the chair, should be close to your size. Kendra stood in the doorway staring at the cot. It was the first bed she'd seen in 4 months. Not a real bed, a cot with a thin mattress and a wool blanket. But it was indoors, with a door that locked, and no one was going to tell her to move along. Wire, he turned back. Why are you doing all this? You don't know me. Wire leaned against the doorframe. 6 years ago, I was sleeping in my car, lost my apartment, lost my job, lost everything after my mom died, and I spent every penny I had on her medical bills. Priest found me at a gas station trying to trade my laptop for a tank of gas. Brought me to this clubhouse, gave me that same cot you're looking at, said, "You're useful and you're ours." Never asked for anything in return. He straightened up. The world decided you're invisible, Kendra. This club disagrees. Get some sleep. He closed the door. Kendra locked it, sat on the cot. The mattress was thin enough to feel the frame underneath, but it wasn't concrete. It wasn't asphalt. It wasn't the ground behind a dumpster where she could feel every rock and bottle cap through her sleeping bag. She lay down, pulled the blanket up, stared at the ceiling. In 8 hours, she would stand before 200 Hell's Angels and tell them what she saw. In 8 hours, she would stop being invisible for good. But right now, in this moment, Kendra Holloway was warm and fed and behind a locked door. And for the first time in 6 months, she cried. Not from pain, not from hunger, not from fear, because someone had looked at her and seen a person worth protecting. And she had forgotten that was possible. 4 photos in a manila envelope. A partial license plate memorized in the dark. A girl who noticed everything because the streets had taught her that details meant survival. Officer Ryan Mercer had no idea what was coming. He'd beaten a child, threatened a witness, taken cartel money under a security light, and left behind the one thing no dirty cop can afford to leave behind. A survivor with a camera and absolutely nothing left to lose. Kendra woke to knocking. 3 sharp raps on the metal door. She sat up so fast her vision went black, her body reacting the way it had for 6 months. Instant alert, instant fear. Where am I? Who's coming? How do I run? Then she felt the cot beneath her, the blanket, the locked door. Kendra, a woman's voice, calm, direct. It's Doc, Patricia Navarro. Open up when you're ready. I've got breakfast and we need to talk before church. Kendra's hands were trembling. She looked at the chair where Wire had said clean clothes would be. Jeans, a plain black t-shirt, socks, even a pair of boots that looked close to her size. Someone had thought about boots. She unlocked the door. Doc stood in the hallway holding a tray. Eggs, toast, orange juice, a banana, and 2 white pills beside a small cup of water. Ibuprofen, Doc said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. For the headache you definitely have from 6 months of chronic dehydration. Kendra took the pills first, then the orange juice. Doc watched her the way a medic watches a patient, assessing, calculating, cataloging damage. Sit down, eat, and take your shirt off. Excuse me? Your shoulders. I could see the burns through your shirt last night. 2nd degree, maybe worse. I need to treat them before they get infected, and out here in the desert, Infection kills faster than heat. Kendra hesitated, then pulled the oversized shirt she'd slept in over her head. Doc's expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened. The burns on Kendra's shoulders and upper back were raw, peeling skin over angry red flesh, some areas already showing signs of early infection. But it was the rest that told the real story. Ribs visible beneath paper-thin skin, collarbones jutting like shelf brackets, arms no thicker than the bones inside them. "When's the last time you weighed yourself?" Doc asked, pulling supplies from a medical bag. "Couple months ago, 94 pounds. You're under 90 now. I'd bet my license on it." Doc began cleaning the burns with a gentleness that contradicted her blunt tone. "How long since you had a full meal before last night?" "Define full." "More than 500 calories in one sitting." Kendra thought about it. "I don't know. Weeks, maybe." Doc applied antibiotic ointment to the worst areas. Her hands were steady, practiced. "I spent 14 years as an Army combat nurse, 3 deployments. I've treated soldiers who stepped on IEDs with less tissue damage than what the Arizona sun did to you in 6 months." She paused. "You're about 3 weeks from organ failure, Kendra. Maybe less. Your body's been eating itself to keep your brain and heart running. Another month on the streets, and we wouldn't be having this conversation." Kendra stared at the wall. 3 weeks. She'd known it was bad. She hadn't known it was a countdown. "I'm telling you this," Doc said, taping gauze over the worst burns, "because in about 40 minutes, you're going to walk into a room with 200 men, and you're going to be scared. That's fine. But I want you to understand something before you go in there." She put her hands on Kendra's shoulders, carefully avoiding the burns. "You were 3 weeks from dying, and instead of using the last of your strength to save yourself, you used it to save someone else's kid. That's not stupidity. That's not recklessness. That's the kind of courage that most people never find in a whole lifetime." Kendra's throat tightened. "I didn't think about it. I just moved." That's what courage is. The thinking comes after. Get dressed. Eat everything on that tray. You're going to need it. Doc left. Kendra put on the clean clothes, the first clothes that actually fit her body in months. The jeans sat on her hips without a belt. Too big, but close enough. The black t-shirt was soft, cotton, and it didn't smell like sweat or garbage or the chemical reek of truck stop bathrooms. She laced up the boots. She ate every bite on the tray. Then she drank the rest of the orange juice, ate the banana, and wished there was more. At 5:52 a.m., Wire knocked. "It's time." Kendra opened the door. Wire looked her over. Clean clothes, treated burns, fed, standing upright. "You look different." I showered. "That's not what I mean." He handed her a bottle of water. "You look like someone who's about to walk into a fight and knows she's going to win." "I'm terrified." "Good. Terrified people pay attention. Let's go." He led her down the hallway toward the main room, and with each step the sound grew louder. Not shouting, murmuring. The low, steady rumble of 200 male voices in a confined space, like standing too close to a freeway. Wire pushed open the double doors. Kendra stopped breathing. The room was packed. Wall to wall, leather and denim, tattoos and beards, Hell's Angels patches on every vest. Some stood along the walls, some sat at long tables, some leaned against support columns, and every single one of them turned to look when the doors opened. 200 men staring at a 90-pound girl in borrowed clothes. Kendra's legs locked. She couldn't move. 6 months of being invisible, of making herself small, of training her body to disappear, and now she was the most visible person in the building. Every instinct screamed at her to shrink, to retreat, to find a corner and fold herself into it. Wire's hand touched her elbow. "Breathe," he said quietly. "They're not looking at you like a threat. They're looking at you like you matter. I know it feels the same, but it's not." At the head of the room, behind a heavy wooden table, sat a man Kendra had never seen. 62 years old, silver hair cropped close, face carved from decades of sun and hard decisions. His vest bore the president's patch. He sat perfectly still, watching her the way a general watches a new recruit, measuring not what she was, but what she could become. Victor Priest Dalton. Hawk stood to Priest's right, arms crossed. TJ wasn't there, still at the hospital, but Hawk's eyes were fixed on Kendra with an expression that said, "I brought you here. Don't let me down." Priest raised one hand. The room went silent, not gradually, instantly. 200 voices cut off like someone had pulled a plug. "Brothers." His voice wasn't loud, but it reached every corner. The kind of voice that didn't need volume because it carried authority on its own. Last night at 10:51 p.m., Officer Ryan Mercer of Tucson PD assaulted TJ Brooks, Hawk's son, behind the Red Dust Travel Center. TJ witnessed Mercer accepting cash payment from an unknown individual. Mercer beat him to ensure his silence, broke his nose, cracked his rib, gave him a concussion, told him he'd put Hawk away for 20 years, and dropped TJ into foster care. No one moved. No one spoke. But Kendra could feel the anger building in the room like heat before a storm. While Mercer was assaulting TJ, this young woman, Priest gestured toward Kendra. Kendra Holloway, 19 years old, homeless for 6 months, was sleeping behind the dumpsters at the travel center. She witnessed the assault. She photographed it. 4 shots on a disposable camera that document the crime in full. Mercer's face, his badge, the cash, and the beating. A sound moved through the room. Not words, more like a collective exhale. Kendra is here because Hawk invoked blood debt. She saved his son. She is under full club protection, and she is going to tell you exactly what she saw. Priest looked at her. "Kendra, come forward." Her legs moved before her brain agreed. She walked through the center of the room, between rows of men who parted for her like water, and stopped in front of Priest's table. "Tell them," Priest said simply. Kendra opened her mouth. Nothing came out. 200 faces, 200 sets of eyes. She could feel their expectations pressing against her skin. Then she thought about TJ, 13 years old, blood on the concrete, feet off the ground, that choking sound when Mercer's forearm crushed his windpipe. "I was behind the dumpster enclosure," Kendra said. Her voice cracked on the first word, but she kept going. "I heard a fist hitting someone, then a kid crying out. I looked through the fence and saw Mercer, full uniform, badge, everything, holding TJ against the wall by his throat." She told them everything. The words Mercer used, the threats, the way TJ's phone shattered on the concrete, the calm, practiced way Mercer spoke, like he'd done this before, like silencing witnesses was routine. She told them about the camera flash, the chase, hiding under the truck while Mercer's boots got closer and closer. She told them about finding TJ on the curb, bleeding, and how every single person who walked past him decided it wasn't their problem. She told them about herself, too, not because anyone asked, but because it mattered. Foster care at 7, aged out at 18, 63 job applications, 0 callbacks, a car that got repossessed, a shelter that hit capacity, 6 months of surviving in spaces most people wouldn't put their dogs. "I wasn't supposed to be there," Kendra said. "I wasn't supposed to see anything. I was supposed to be invisible because that's what I've been for 6 months. That's what society decided I was, invisible. Not worth feeding, not worth hiring, not worth acknowledging." She looked directly at Priest. "But I was there, and I saw, and when I saw a cop beating a kid, I had 90 seconds to decide, stay hidden and stay safe, or take the photos and become a target. I took the photos." Silence. Then a voice from the back. "Show us." Wire stood up with enlargements he'd printed at the clubhouse. 4 photos blown up to 11 by 17. He pinned them to the board behind Priest's table. 200 men leaned forward, and 200 faces shifted from anger to fury, to something colder and more dangerous than both. A brother in the front row, big, shaved head, patch-reading Sergeant-at-Arms, stood up. "Priest, let me go get this piece of—" "Sit down, Reaper." Reaper sat, but his fist stayed clenched on the table. "We don't touch Mercer," Priest said. "Not with hands, not with threats, not with anything he can use against this club. He's a cop. We go after him with violence. Every badge in Arizona comes down on us. They'd love that excuse. We're not giving it to them." "Then how?" Another brother, younger, angry. "Wire." Priest nodded. Wire stood again, this time with his laptop connected to a screen behind him. "I've been digging all night. Here's what we know." He pulled up a spreadsheet. Mercer's salary is $72,000 a year. His bank deposits over the last 24 months total over $240,000. $9,000 a month, regular as a paycheck, plus cash spikes that correspond to major cartel busts where evidence went missing. He clicked to the next screen. 8 arrests of Hells Angels members in 2 years. All Mercer's cases, all dismissed or reduced. "Ghost, you remember your arrest 14 months ago?" A man near the wall, wiry, neck tattoos, quiet eyes, straightened up. 2 kilos in my saddlebag. Swore to God I was clean. Nobody believed me. Mercer was the arresting officer, and he worked the evidence locker the week the cocaine disappeared. He planted it, Ghost. He planted it to make himself look like a real cop while he was cleaning for the cartel. Ghost's face went blank. The dangerous kind of blank. "I spent 3 months in county lockup before that case got tossed. My daughter's first birthday. I missed my daughter's first birthday because that piece of garbage planted drugs in my bike." The room's temperature dropped 10 degrees. Priest held up his hand. "There's more. Wire. 2 witnesses in cartel-related cases have disappeared in the last 3 years. Both were connected to investigations where Mercer was involved. Martin Reyes, 2023, found dead in the desert, ruled a drug deal gone wrong, except Reyes was an informant trying to get out. Angela Torres, 2024, college student who witnessed a cartel execution. Mercer was assigned to her protective detail. She vanished 2 days before the trial. Never found. Kendra felt ice move through her chest. 2 people. Gone. Because they saw something they shouldn't have. Just like her. Just like TJ. "He would have killed TJ," Kendra said. She didn't mean to say it out loud, but the words came out anyway, and every head in the room turned toward her. "Yes," Priest said quietly, "he would have. And he'll kill me if he finds me. That's why he won't find you." Hawk stepped forward. "I have a brother, Marcus Brooks, FBI, Tucson Field Office. We don't talk much, different paths. But for TJ, he'll listen. He'll more than listen." "An FBI agent?" Reaper's eyebrows went up. "Hawk, you've got a Fed in the family and you never mentioned it?" "It never came up." A few brothers laughed, the tension cracking just enough to let air back into the room. "Call him," Priest said. "Set a meeting. Today. We give the FBI everything. The photos, the bank records, the witness testimony. We let the feds build the case, and we protect Kendra and TJ until Mercer's in cuffs." "And if the feds don't move fast enough," Reaper asked, "then we adjust. But we start clean. We start legal. And we make sure that when Mercer goes down, he stays down. No procedural errors, no tainted evidence, no grounds for appeal. This man beat a child and works for a cartel. He's going to die in a federal prison cell. That's our justice." Priest looked at Kendra. "You're going to need to tell your story again, to federal agents, possibly to a grand jury, eventually in a courtroom. Can you handle that?" "I've handled worse." "I know you have." Priest's voice softened for the first time. "Doc tells me you're 3 weeks from organ failure, that you've been surviving on scraps in rainwater, that the system that was supposed to catch you when you aged out of foster care just let you fall." Kendra said nothing. There was nothing to say. It was true. That ends today, Priest said. Not because you owe us, not because we feel sorry for you, because you did something that 200 men in this room couldn't do. You were in the right place at the right time with the courage to act. You saved one of ours. And in this brotherhood, that means you are ours. He placed his hand on the table. All in favor of full club protection for Kendra Holloway. Indefinite. Housing, medical, provisions, security detail, until Mercer is arrested, tried, and sentenced. 200 hands rose, every single one. Carried, Priest said. Unanimous. Kendra stood in front of 200 Hell's Angels, wearing borrowed clothes and boots that were half a size too big, 90 pounds of bone and sunburn, and 6 months of damage. And for the second time since last night, she felt tears pushing against the back of her eyes. She didn't let them fall. Not here. Not yet. Thank you, she said. Don't thank us, Priest replied. Just do what you've already been doing. Tell the truth, stand up, and don't let that bastard win. Hawk left the clubhouse at 7:15 to call Marcus. By 8:30, he was back with a time and location, FBI field office, 10 a.m. Marcus had listened to the short version and asked one question. Is the witness credible? She noticed a scar on the cop's knuckles from 20 feet in the dark, Hawk told him. She memorized a partial license plate while watching a kid get beaten. She's the most observant person I've ever met. Bring her in. The drive to the FBI field office took 22 minutes. Hawk drove. Wire sat in the back with his laptop, still pulling data. Kendra rode shotgun, holding the manila envelope with the photos against her chest. Kendra, Hawk said, eyes on the road. Yeah. When we get in there, Marcus is going to push you, hard. He's going to question everything, your background, your credibility, your motives. He's FBI. It's his job to find holes. I don't have holes. I know what I saw. I know that. He doesn't. Not yet. Hawk glanced at her. He's also going to look at you and see a homeless teenager. He's going to wonder if you're using this situation to get something. Housing, money, protection. People have done that before. I was dying behind a dumpster, Hawk. I didn't plan this. I know, just let him push. Answer everything. Don't get defensive. The calmer you are, the more he'll believe you. They pulled into the federal building parking lot. Wire handed Kendra a folder. Photos, his financial analysis, the timeline of Mercer's suspicious arrests. Everything's in there, Wire said. Your testimony connects the dots. Without you, it's just numbers and pictures. With you, it's a case. Marcus Brooks was waiting in a conference room. He looked nothing like Hawk. Clean cut, suit and tie, 14 years of federal service in his posture. He stood when they entered, shook Hawk's hand stiffly, nodded at Wire, and fixed his eyes on Kendra. Sit down, Miss Holloway. She sat, placed the folder on the table, kept her hands flat on her knees to stop them from shaking. Marcus opened the folder, studied the photos one by one, taking his time. His expression gave nothing away. Then he looked up. Walk me through it, from the beginning, every detail. Kendra told her story for the third time. The same details, the same sequence, the same words Mercer used, the same sounds TJ made, the same sequence of 4 photographs. She didn't embellish. She didn't dramatize. She spoke the way she'd lived for 6 months, stripped down to what mattered and nothing more. When she finished, Marcus leaned back in his chair, studied her for a long 10 seconds. You noticed a scar on his left hand. 2-inch scar across the knuckles, left hand. And the license plate? 7 Charlie Bravo 4, first 4 characters, Arizona plate. I couldn't get the rest. The Escalade was moving. You were watching a violent assault on a child and you memorized a license plate. I notice things. It's how I've stayed alive. Marcus looked at Hawk, then back at Kendra. How long have you been homeless? 6 months. And before that, foster care, aged out at 18. Any criminal record? No. Drug use? No. Any connection to the Hells Angels prior to last night? I didn't know what a Hells Angel was until TJ told me to find his dad. Marcus picked up photo 4, the one of Mercer advancing on TJ, fist raised. He stared at it for a long time. "My nephew," he said quietly. "That's my nephew in this photo." "Yes, sir." Marcus set the photo down, picked up his phone, dialed, waited. "It's Brooks. I need organized crime and public corruption in conference room 3. Now, bring a recorder." He hung up, looked at Kendra. "I'm opening a federal investigation. Corruption, racketeering, assault of a minor, and based on what your friend Wire has compiled, possible conspiracy to commit murder." He stood, walked to the window, stood there for a moment with his back to the room. "Hawk." "Yeah." "He beat your son, our nephew, a 13-year-old boy." "Yeah, Marcus, he did." Marcus turned around. The federal agent mask was still there, but underneath it Kendra could see something raw and familiar. The same thing she'd seen on Hawk's face in the truck stop. A family member in pain. "I'm going to bury him," Marcus said. "Legally, thoroughly, permanently. But I need time to build an airtight case. No shortcuts, no vigilante justice, nothing that gives his lawyer an inch. Can your club handle that?" "We can handle it. And Ms. Holloway," Marcus looked at her, "you're the keystone of this entire case. Without your testimony, the photos are circumstantial. With you on the stand, they're a conviction, which means until Mercer is in custody, you are the most important person in this building and the biggest target in Tucson." Kendra held his gaze. "I've been a target my whole life, Agent Brooks. The only difference is now I chose it." Marcus almost smiled. "Almost. Stay with the club. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't contact anyone from your previous life. Not that there's anyone to contact, from what I gather. And Kendra," he paused, "when this goes to trial, the defense is going to come after you. Your background, your credibility, your housing status. They're going to try to make the jury see a homeless girl with nothing to lose who fabricated a story for a meal and a roof. Let them try. I intend to. Because when that jury looks at you and hears what you did, 94 pounds, sleeping behind a dumpster, 3 weeks from dying, and you still stop to help a stranger's kid, no defense attorney on earth is going to make them doubt you." He picked up the photos one more time, held up the 4th one, TJ's terrified face, Mercer's raised fist. "Ryan Mercer has been untouchable for 3 years. He's had a badge, a cartel paycheck, and a department that looked the other way." Marcus placed the photo back on the table. He just picked the wrong alley and the wrong witness. 6 days. That's how long it took to build a case strong enough to destroy a man who'd spent 3 years believing he was untouchable. Kendra spent those 6 days at the clubhouse under 24-hour protection. Brothers rotated guards shifts, 2 at the door, 2 on the perimeter, 1 with her at all times. She slept on the cot in the back room. She ate 3 meals a day because Doc stood over her and watched every bite. She gained 4 pounds by day 3, which Doc said was mostly water retention, but her hands stopped shaking and the dizziness that had followed her for months began to fade. TJ was released from St. Mary's on the 2nd day. Hawk brought him to the clubhouse that afternoon. The boy walked in with his nose taped, his left eye still swollen, his ribs wrapped tight under his shirt. He saw Kendra sitting at the long table with Wire, going over her testimony for what felt like the 100th time, and he crossed the room without a word and hugged her. Kendra went rigid. Physical contact, voluntary, gentle, not a threat, had become so foreign to her body that her first instinct was to pull away. But TJ held on. His arms were shaking. His face was pressed against her shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you weren't there." "Don't think about that. I can't stop. Kendra put her arms around him. Carefully, the way you hold something you're afraid of breaking. You're here. You're safe. That's the only part that matters. TJ pulled back, wiped his eyes fast, trying to pretend he hadn't been crying. 13 years old, trying to be tough. Kendra recognized it. She'd done the same thing at every foster placement. Cry in private, never let them see. Dad said you were living behind the dumpsters. Yeah. For how long? A while. That's messed up. TJ sat down across from her. You saved my life, and you didn't even have a place to sleep. I had a place. It just happened to be behind a dumpster. TJ almost smiled. You're weird. I've been told. From that afternoon on, TJ was at the clubhouse every day. Hawk dropped him off in the morning, picked him up at night. The boy sat with Kendra while she reviewed testimony with Wire, helped Doc organize medical supplies, played cards with whatever brothers were on guard duty. He and Kendra didn't talk about that night, not directly. Instead, they talked about everything else. Music, movies he'd seen that she hadn't because she'd been homeless during their release. Photography. TJ wanted to see the other photos on her disposable camera, the sunsets, the shadows, the desert landscapes she'd captured during those long months alone. Why sunsets? He asked on the third day. Kendra thought about it. Because they were the one thing that was still beautiful. Everything else was survival, pain, hunger. But sunsets didn't care that I was homeless. They just happened. And for a few minutes, I could pretend I was just a person watching something beautiful instead of a person trying not to die. TJ was quiet for a moment. Will you teach me? Photography? I don't know anything about photography. I just point and click. You got 4 perfect shots of a cop committing a felony in the dark from behind a fence. I think you know more than you think. Meanwhile, Wire was building a weapon. He worked 18 hours a day, sometimes 20, hunched over his laptop in the clubhouse office with 3 monitors, 2 burner phones, and a coffee maker that ran non-stop. He pulled bank records through channels Kendra didn't ask about. He cross-referenced Mercer's shift schedules with cartel activity reports that Marcus fed him through Hawk. He mapped every arrest Mercer had made in 3 years and flagged the ones that didn't add up. Charges dropped, evidence lost, witnesses who recanted or vanished. On day 4, Wire called a meeting. Hawk, Priest, Reaper, Ghost, and Bones. Gerald Bones Thompson, 56, the club's legal advisor, former federal prosecutor who'd left the government 20 years ago and never looked back. Kendra sat in the corner, listening. Here's what we've got, Wire said. Mercer's been on the Sinaloa cartel's payroll for a minimum of 3 years. Monthly payments of $9,000, wired through a shell company in Nogales, deposited into a secondary account under his wife's maiden name. Total confirmed, $342,000. His wife know? Reaper asked. Divorced 2 years ago. She moved to Colorado. I don't think she knows anything. The account was set up after the divorce using her old identity documents. Smart, Bones muttered. He's not just smart, he's methodical. Wire clicked to the next screen. 8 arrests of Hells Angels members in 24 months. Every single one of them follows the same pattern. Routine traffic stop, probable cause manufactured on the spot, evidence that appears out of nowhere and disappears from the locker within a week. He was using our club as a prop, arresting our guys on fake charges to pad his stats and maintain his cover as a legitimate cop. Ghost spoke from the corner. His voice was flat, controlled. I did 93 days in county because of him. My daughter took her first steps while I was inside. My wife almost left me, all because he put 2 kilos in my saddlebag that were never there. I know, brother, Priest said. I want to hear you say it. Say what he did to me. He framed you. He stole 93 days of your life and he framed you. Ghost nodded once, said nothing else. The witnesses, Bones said. Where are we? Wire pulled up a new file. Marcus and I have been coordinating. 3 witnesses so far beyond Kendra. Sarah Chen, 23, pulled over by Mercer 18 months ago for suspected DUI. She was stone sober. Breathalyzer read 0.00. Mercer arrested her anyway, took her to a deserted road, gave her a choice. The room went silent. She refused, Wire continued. He booked her for DUI and resisting arrest. She spent 2 days in county before her lawyer got it thrown out. She has photos of the bruises where he grabbed her and the arrest report with his signature. Son of a bitch, Reaper said quietly. Second witness, James Rivera, 41, owns a mechanic shop on South 6th. Mercer shook him down for protection money. $2,000 a month or his business fails every inspection. Rivera paid for 6 months, couldn't afford it anymore, and suddenly he's drowning in citations and fines. Third, Priest asked, Marcus's own case files. 3 years of cartel investigations where informants vanished or recanted right before trial. In every case, Mercer had access to witness information. In every case, the timeline of the witness disappearing coincides with Mercer's shift schedule. Bones leaned forward. The 2 murder cases, Reyes and Torres. What's the evidence? Martin Reyes, 2023, informant, scheduled to testify about cartel distribution routes. Body found in the desert 3 months later. Ruled a deal gone wrong, but his phone records show a call to Mercer's burner, which we only identified because of the banking patterns, 2 days before he disappeared. And Torres? Angela Torres, college student, witnessed a cartel execution in early 2024. Mercer was assigned to her protective detail. She vanished 48 hours before the trial. Never found. Wire paused. Her parents have been searching for 18 months. They call the Tucson PD tip line every week. The officer who takes their call? Ryan Mercer. Kendra felt sick. The parents of a missing girl calling the police for help, and the man who answered the phone was the man who made her disappear. That's enough, Priest said. Bones, is it enough for a conviction? With Kendra's testimony, the photos, the financial records, the pattern of arrests and 3 corroborating witnesses, Bones almost smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It's enough for a conviction, a sentencing enhancement, and a federal judge who'll throw the book so hard it leaves a mark. Marcus says the warrant's ready, Hawk said. He wants to move tomorrow, 2 p.m., Tucson PD headquarters. Priest nodded slowly. And he wants us there. All of us, every brother. He wants 200 Hells Angels standing outside when they walk Mercer out in cuffs. Says it sends a message. What message? Reaper asked. That you don't beat children and walk away clean. That badges don't make you untouchable. That someone is always watching. Hawk looked at Kendra. That's his message. But I've got one too. What's yours? That the girl everyone ignored just ended your career, your freedom, and your life as you know it. And she did it with a $6 camera. That night, Kendra couldn't sleep. She lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling, running tomorrow through her head on a loop. She'd asked Wire what would happen, step by step, and he'd laid it out. FBI agents would enter Tucson PD headquarters through the back, approach Mercer at his desk, read him his rights, cuff him, and walk him out the front entrance. And outside, 200 Hells Angels would be waiting in formation. What do I do? Kendra had asked. You stand there. You let him see your face. You let him know who took those photos. What if he can't do anything? He'll be in handcuffs surrounded by federal agents. But he'll see you, and he'll know. That's the point. At 1:15 p.m. the next day, Hawk pulled his truck into the Tucson PD parking lot. Wire was in the back. Kendra rode shotgun. She was wearing the same black t-shirt Doc had given her, the same jeans, the same boots. Clean, fed, still underweight, still sunburned, still carrying 6 months of damage on her body. But her eyes were clear and her hands were steady. The parking lot was already full. 198 motorcycles, parked in rows, engines off. Brothers standing beside their bikes in formation, silent, arms at their sides, vests patched, watching the building. Priest stood at the front of the formation. He nodded when Hawk arrived. "She ready?" "Ask her yourself." Priest looked at Kendra. "You ready?" "No." "Good answer. Honest people are never ready for moments like this. Take your position. Between Hawk and me, front row." Kendra walked to the front line. TJ was already there, standing beside a brother she didn't recognize who had clearly been assigned as his personal guard. The boy's face was still bruised, still swollen, but his eyes were fierce. "Hey," TJ said. "Hey. You scared?" "Terrified." "Me too." He reached over and grabbed her hand, held it. "But we're here." "Yeah, we're here." At 1:47 p.m., 12 FBI agents entered Tucson Police Department headquarters through the service entrance. Nobody inside knew they were coming. Nobody except Marcus Brooks, who had spent the last 6 days building a case so tight that Mercer's own lawyer would need a decade to find a crack. At 1:51 p.m., Marcus walked through the patrol room. 3 agents flanked him. Every officer at every desk looked up, and a few recognized Marcus from interagency briefings, but nobody expected what came next. Marcus stopped in front of desk 14. Officer Ryan Mercer, 12 years on the force, Officer of the Year 2023, Community Outreach Coordinator, DARE program speaker, the face on the department's recruitment poster. Mercer looked up, smiled the confident smile of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Agent Brooks, what brings the FBI to our humble—" "Stand up, Officer Mercer." The smile flickered. "Excuse me?" "Stand up. Put your hands behind your back." "What is this?" "Ryan Mercer, you are under arrest. Corruption, racketeering, assault of a minor, witness tampering, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent." The color drained from Mercer's face in real time. "This is insane. I'm a decorated officer. I have commendations. I have—" 2 agents grabbed his arms, spun him, cuffed him. His chest hit his own desk. The same desk where he'd filed falsified reports. The same desk where he'd documented the arrests he'd manufactured. The same desk where he'd sat after making witnesses disappear and typed up summaries that made everything look clean. "You have the right to an attorney," Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the silent patrol room. "If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand these rights?" Mercer was breathing hard. His eyes darted around the room, looking for allies, looking for someone who would stop this, looking for the out he always found. But every officer in the room was watching with the stillness of people who had just realized they'd been working next to a monster. "This won't stick," Mercer hissed. "I know people. I have connections. You have no idea who you're—" "We have 4 photographs of you accepting cartel money and beating a 13-year-old boy," Marcus said. "We have 3 years of bank records. We have 8 falsified arrests. We have 3 witnesses to separate crimes. And we have a 19-year-old girl who saw everything you did and had the courage to document it." Marcus pulled Mercer upright. "Walk." They moved him through the building, past the officers who'd called him a hero, past the Officer of the Year plaque with his name engraved in brass, past the Community Outreach Bulletin Board with his photo smiling down at schoolchildren, past the recruitment poster where his face represented everything Tucson PD was supposed to stand for. Every step was a dismantling. Every hallway was a strip of armor being pulled away. By the time they reached the front entrance, Ryan Mercer wasn't a decorated officer anymore. He was a man in handcuffs, being pushed through a door into blinding Arizona sun and into 200 Hell's Angels. They stood in formation, silent. Not a shout, not a jeer, not a raised fist, just presence. 200 men in leather vests, arms at their sides, watching, witnessing. Mercer saw them and stumbled. The agents caught him, kept him moving toward the federal vehicle parked at the curb. But his eyes were scanning the crowd, frantic, searching for... He found her. Kendra stood between Hawk and Priest, front row, center. 90 pounds, sunburned, wearing borrowed clothes, looking directly at him. TJ stood beside her, holding her hand, his bruised face visible, his split lip still healing, evidence written on his skin. Mercer's face contorted. Recognition, rage, disbelief. "That's her," he shouted, pulling against the agent's grip. "The homeless girl. She's lying. She's a junkie, a nobody. You're going to take the word of a homeless..." "Save it for your lawyer," Marcus said. He opened the vehicle door, pushed Mercer's head down, guided him into the back seat. Mercer pressed his face against the window, still staring at Kendra, still trying to make her small with his eyes, trying to make her disappear the way he'd made others disappear. Kendra held his gaze. She didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She stood there, a girl who'd been sleeping behind a dumpster 8 days ago, who'd been invisible for 6 months, who'd been 3 weeks from dying, and she watched the man who tried to silence a child get taken away in handcuffs. Marcus slammed the door. The federal vehicle pulled forward, slowly, like it wanted every officer watching from the headquarters windows to see, like it wanted the moment to last. Then, simultaneously, like a signal no one heard but everyone felt, 200 engines roared to life. The sound hit the building like a wall of thunder, not chasing, not threatening, announcing. Kendra felt the vibration in her chest, in her teeth, in the bones Mercer's system had nearly starved into dust. 200 motorcycles saying what 200 men didn't need to say with words. "We are here. We saw what you did, and you're done." The engines held for 10 seconds, 15, 20. Then one by one, they cut. Silence. Priest put his hand on Kendra's shoulder. "It's over." "Is it?" "The arrest is over. The trial's next. And Kendra, the trial is where you finish him." TJ hadn't let go of her hand. She looked down at him, this 13-year-old boy with his broken nose and his cracked rib and his eyes that still carried the shadow of Mercer's forearm across his throat. "We did it," TJ said. "Not yet, but we started." Hawk appeared behind them. He looked at his son, at Kendra, at the federal vehicle disappearing down the street, carrying the man who'd nearly destroyed both of them. "Blood debt," Hawk said quietly. "Blood debt," Kendra replied, and for the first time she understood what it meant. Not a transaction, not a favor to be repaid, a bond, permanent, unbreakable, forged in the worst moment of her life and sealed in the moment she chose to act. She was still holding TJ's hand when the last motorcycle engine fell silent and the Arizona sun beat down on a parking lot full of leather and justice and a girl who would never be invisible again. The trial started on a Monday. Kendra woke at 4 a.m. in the one-bedroom apartment the Brotherhood Fund had rented for her 3 weeks after Mercer's arrest. She lay in bed, a real bed with sheets and pillows and a comforter Doc had picked out because you've slept on concrete long enough to earn something soft, and stared at the ceiling and tried to make her heartbeat slow down. Today she would walk into a federal courtroom. Today she would sit in a witness chair. Today she would look at Ryan Mercer and tell 12 strangers exactly what she saw behind that dumpster. And Mercer's lawyer would try to destroy her. She got up, showered, put on the clothes Doc and Wire's girlfriend, Lena, had taken her shopping for. Black slacks, a white blouse, simple shoes. Kendra had stood in the dressing room staring at herself in the mirror for 5 minutes. She barely recognized the person looking back. Clean skin, hair washed and brushed, blonde again instead of dust brown. Eyes that weren't sunken anymore. A body that had gained 11 pounds in 3 weeks and was starting to look like it belonged to a living person instead of a ghost. "You clean up good," Lena had said. "I look like someone pretending to be a person." "You look like someone who is a person. You just forgot." Hawk picked her up at 7:15. TJ was in the back seat, wearing a button-down shirt that he clearly hated. "You look nice," TJ said. "You look like your dad made you dress up." "He did. I wanted to wear my hoodie." "You got blood on your hoodie." "Yeah, well, I was saving it for a special occasion." He grinned. The bruises on his face had faded to yellow-green shadows. His nose was still slightly crooked where the break hadn't set perfectly straight. He'd carry that crookedness for the rest of his life. A permanent reminder of the night a cop tried to silence him. Hawk drove without speaking for 10 minutes. Then at a red light, he turned to Kendra. "You ready for this?" "Everybody keeps asking me that because it matters." Bones says the defense attorney is Bradley Kirkman. He's expensive, he's aggressive, and his entire strategy is going to be attacking your credibility. Your housing status, your background, your foster care history. He's going to try to make the jury see a desperate girl who made up a story for a meal and a roof. "I didn't make up anything." "I know. The jury doesn't. Not yet." Hawk pulled forward when the light changed. Bones also says Kirkman might bring up your foster records. Sealed records, but there are ways around that. He might imply things, behavioral issues, instability. Kendra's jaw tightened. "I had behavioral issues because I was a child being moved between 7 homes in 11 years. I was unstable because no one gave me anything stable to stand on." Say that, exactly like that, on the stand. When Kirkman pushes, don't fold, don't get angry, just tell the truth the way you just told it to me. The courthouse was surrounded, not with protesters, not with media, with Hell's Angels. Not 200 this time, 50. Priest had been strategic. "We don't want to intimidate the jury," he'd told Hawk. "We want to support the witness. 50 brothers, clean vests, respectful distance. We sit in the gallery, we watch. That's enough." Kendra walked into the courthouse between Hawk and Priest. TJ walked behind her with Doc. Wire was already inside, sitting with Bones at the prosecution's table as a consulting witness. The courtroom was full. Reporters in the back rows, citizens who'd followed the case, a few off-duty Tucson PD officers who'd come to watch one of their own face justice. Some out of disgust, some out of disbelief, some because they needed to see it to accept it was real. And there, at the defense table, sat Ryan Mercer. Kendra hadn't seen him since the arrest. He looked different in a suit instead of a uniform. Smaller, his hair was shorter, freshly cut. His face was clean-shaven and composed. He looked like a respectable man, a professional, a citizen wrongly accused. Then his eyes found Kendra, and the mask slipped. Just for a second. Underneath the suit and the composure and the expensive haircut, she saw the same man who'd held a 13-year-old boy by the throat and promised to make him disappear. She didn't look away. Neither did he. Bones had told her the prosecution would go first. 3 days of testimony. Kendra was scheduled for day 2. Day 1 was Wire's financial analysis, Marcus's investigation summary, and the corroborating witnesses, Sarah Chen and James Rivera. Sarah Chen took the stand at 10 a.m., 23 years old, shaking so badly her water glass rattled against the microphone stand. She described the traffic stop, the false arrest, the deserted road where Mercer gave her a choice. She described refusing. She described the bruises. She described 2 days in county lockup for a DUI she never committed, with a breathalyzer reading of 0.00. Kirkman cross-examined her for 40 minutes, questioned her memory, suggested she'd been drinking and forgotten, implied she had a motive to fabricate because of a dismissed lawsuit. Sarah held. She cried twice, but she held. James Rivera went next. 41, mechanic, immigrant. He described the shakedowns, $2,000 a month, the failed inspections when he stopped paying, the near bankruptcy, the report to Internal Affairs that went nowhere. Kirkman attacked his immigration status, suggested he was using the trial to gain sympathy for a pending visa application. Rivera's hands shook, but his voice didn't. "I came to this country to build something," Rivera told the jury. "Officer Mercer tried to tear it down because I couldn't afford to pay him anymore. I reported it. Nobody listened. Nobody cared, because he had a badge and I have an accent." Day 2, Kendra's turn. She walked to the witness stand at 9:47 a.m. She could feel every eye in the courtroom tracking her. The jury, the judge, the reporters, the 50 Hells Angels in the gallery, Hawk and TJ in the front row, and Mercer, staring from the defense table with the focused hatred of a man watching the person who ended his life. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Diana Reeves, approached. "Please state your name for the record." "Kendra Holloway." "Ms. Holloway, where were you on the night of August 14th? "Behind the dumpster enclosure at the Red Dust Travel Center, mile marker 203 on Interstate 10. "Why were you there?" "I was sleeping there. I'd been homeless for 6 months. The space behind the dumpsters was sheltered from the wind, and the truck stop staff didn't check it." "Can you describe for the jury what you witnessed beginning at approximately 10:51 p.m.? Kendra told the story. Fourth time. Same details. Same sequence. Same words Mercer used. Same sounds TJ made. She described the camera flash, the chase, hiding under the truck, finding TJ on the curb, helping him inside, meeting Hawk. She spoke for 47 minutes. She didn't hesitate. She didn't contradict herself. She looked at the jury when she described what Mercer did, and she looked at TJ when she described finding him bleeding on the curb. When she finished, Prosecutor Reeves introduced the 4 photographs as evidence. The jury studied each one. Kendra watched their faces and saw the moment each juror understood what they were looking at. The shift from attention to horror. Then Kirkman stood up. "Ms. Holloway." He approached the stand with the easy confidence of a man who'd broken 100 witnesses. "You were homeless on the night in question." "Yes." "Living behind a dumpster." "Behind a dumpster enclosure, not inside the dumpsters." "Behind a dumpster enclosure. For how long?" 3 nights at that location, 6 months total on the streets. "And before that, you were in the foster care system, from age 7 to 18. 7 placements in 11 years, is that correct?" "Yes." "That's a lot of moves, Ms. Holloway. Can you explain why you were moved so frequently?" Kendra felt the trap. Kirkman wanted her to say behavioral issues. He wanted the jury to hear unstable, troubled, unreliable. "I was moved because the system moves children. Some placements ended because foster parents took in more kids than they could handle. Some ended because funding got cut. One ended because the family moved out of state and didn't want to take me with them." She paused. "One ended because I reported abuse and nobody believed me." The courtroom went quiet. Kirkman recalibrated. "Ms. Holloway, you had no income on the night of August 14th. "No." "No home?" "No." "No phone, no job, no identification." "My ID was in my backpack." "You were essentially destitute." "I was homeless, not destitute. I still had a brain." A few people in the gallery exhaled, almost laughed. "Isn't it true, Ms. Holloway, that you saw an opportunity that night? A chance to insert yourself into a situation that could provide you with housing, food, and financial support from a motorcycle club?" Kendra looked at him. "I was 94 pounds. I had second-degree burns. I was 3 weeks from organ failure, according to the doctor who examined me. And you're suggesting I masterminded a conspiracy that involved faking 4 photographs, coaching a 13-year-old boy I'd never met, and fooling 200 Hells Angels and the FBI. I'm suggesting your desperation may have colored your perception. My desperation is the reason I was behind that dumpster at 10:51 p.m. My perception is the reason I noticed Officer Mercer's badge number, the scar on his left knuckles, and the first four characters of the Escalade's license plate while watching him beat a child. Desperation and perception aren't the same thing, Mr. Kirkman. Kirkman changed tactics. The camera flash. You testified that it alerted Officer Mercer to your presence. Yes. And he pursued you. Yes. But he didn't catch you. No. A trained law enforcement officer couldn't catch a 94-pound malnourished teenager. A trained law enforcement officer didn't expect a witness behind a dumpster at 11 o'clock at night. By the time he reacted, I was already between the trucks. And I've spent 6 months learning how to disappear. He spent 12 years learning how to catch people who run. I don't run, I vanish. There's a difference. Kirkman stared at her for a long moment. Then he returned to his table. No further questions. The prosecution rested on day 3. The jury deliberated for 88 minutes. Guilty. All counts. Judge Sarah Martinez didn't pause. Mr. Mercer, you wore a badge. You swore an oath to protect and serve the citizens of Tucson. Instead, you sold that oath to a cartel. You fabricated arrests. You destroyed evidence. You assaulted a 13-year-old boy. You threatened to put a child into the system you knew would swallow him whole. And you are connected to the disappearance and likely murder of at least 2 witnesses who trusted law enforcement to protect them. She folded her hands. The court sentences you to 18 years in a federal penitentiary. No possibility of parole. Mercer's face went white. His mouth opened. This is a setup. That homeless girl is lying. The Hells Angels paid her to... The Hells Angels, Judge Martinez interrupted, are the reason that boy is alive. Sit down, Mr. Mercer. You are done. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded TJ Hawk. Hawk stood behind his son, one hand on his shoulder. TJ looked at the cameras. 13 years old, crooked nose, fading bruises, and spoke clearly. My name is Tyler Brooks. Officer Mercer beat me because I witnessed him taking drug money. He told me nobody would believe a biker's kid over a cop. He was right. Nobody would have believed me. TJ paused. But Kendra was there. She was homeless. She was invisible. She had every reason to stay hidden and protect herself. Instead, she risked her life to photograph what happened. She saved me. A reporter called out, "What do you want people to know about Kendra?" TJ turned and looked at her, smiled the way only a 13-year-old can smile at the person who saved his life. That she's my hero, and that invisible people aren't invisible. We just stopped looking. 7 months later, Kendra stood in the offices of Tucson Weekly Magazine. Staff photographer, full-time, salary, benefits, a desk with her name on it. Her photographs lined the hallway, not sunsets anymore, but portraits. The homeless veteran under the overpass on Grant Road. The single mother working 3 jobs to keep her kids in school. The foster kid aging out of the system with a garbage bag full of clothes and nowhere to go. All of them shot with the same eye that had noticed a scar on a cop's knuckles from 20 feet in the dark. All of them captured with dignity, with humanity, with the fierce attention of a woman who knew what it felt like to be looked through. Her editor, Marcus Rivera, studied the latest series. These are powerful, Kendra. You see people nobody else sees. I was one of those people. For 6 months, I was invisible. I know what it feels like to have the world look right through you. Not anymore. No, not anymore. She was enrolled at the University of Arizona, photography program, starting in January. Wire had helped with the application. Doc had helped with the financial aid forms. Bones had written a recommendation letter that made Kendra cry when she read it. 3 pages about courage and character from a former federal prosecutor who didn't hand out compliments freely. TJ visited twice a week. They were working on a photography project together, a series called Seen, portraits of people society had decided were invisible. TJ handled the interviews. Kendra handled the camera. Hawk dropped TJ off every time, stayed for coffee, checked that Kendra had everything she needed. You don't have to keep checking on me, she told him one evening. Yeah, I do. Why? The trial's over. Mercer's gone. I'm fine. Hawk set his coffee down, looked at her the way he'd looked at her that first night, seeing everything, the damage and the strength, and the stubborn, furious will to survive that had kept her breathing when her body was trying to shut down. Blood debt doesn't expire, Kendra. It doesn't have a shelf life. You saved my son. That means your family. Not temporarily, not conditionally, permanently. You need something, you call. You're struggling, you tell me. You're in danger, 200 men come running. That's not charity. That's what family means. Kendra touched the small Hell's Angels support pin on her jacket, the one Priest had given her the week after the arrest, signifying club protection. She'd worn it every day since. I still don't feel like I deserve all this, she said quietly. You don't have to feel it. You just have to accept it. That evening, the Hells Angels Tucson chapter held their annual charity ride planning meeting at the clubhouse. Kendra had been invited, not as a protected witness, not as a guest, but as family. She walked in and TJ ran straight to her. Kendra, I got an A on my photography project, the one you helped me with. Mr. Davidson said it was the best in the class. She hugged him. 6 months ago, this boy had been bleeding in an alley with a cop's forearm across his throat. Now he was showing her a graded paper with a red A+ circled at the top, grinning like the world was a place worth trusting. Hawk approached carrying something draped over his arm, a leather vest. Not a full member's patch. Kendra wasn't a member and didn't pretend to be, but a custom vest, black leather, with 2 words embroidered on the back in white thread. Honorary family. From the Brotherhood, Hawk said. You earned this. Priest walked over, 20 brothers behind him, filling the space around Kendra in a loose half circle. The room quieted. 7 months ago, Priest said, a 19-year-old girl was sleeping behind a dumpster, 3 weeks from dying, invisible to every person who walked past her. She had nothing, no family, no home, no money, no power. She had a $6 disposable camera and 24 exposures left. He looked at her. She used 4 of them to save a boy's life, expose a corrupt cop, and dismantle a cartel operation that had been poisoning this city for 3 years. She didn't do it for money. She didn't do it for protection. She didn't even do it because someone asked. She did it because she saw a child in danger, and she refused to look away. Priest took the vest from Hawk and placed it on Kendra's shoulders. The leather was warm, heavy, real. It settled on her frame like armor. You proved something, Kendra. That courage doesn't require size or strength or resources. It requires one thing, the will to act when acting matters. And you acted when it mattered most. He stepped back. Welcome to the family. 200 men raised their glasses. To Kendra. She stood there in a converted warehouse surrounded by 200 Hells Angels, wearing a vest that said she belonged, holding a life she'd built from 4 photographs and 90 seconds of courage. TJ was beside her. Hawk was behind her. Doc, Wire, Priest, Reaper, Ghost. Every one of them looking at her like she was somebody, because she was. Kendra Holloway had spent 6 months invisible. 183 days of being looked through, walked past, ignored, dismissed. She'd slept behind dumpsters and survived on scraps, and believed she was nothing because the world had told her she was nothing. But the world had been wrong. She hadn't been nothing. She'd been exactly what TJ needed, exactly what Hawk needed, exactly what Tucson needed. A witness who refused to stay silent, a girl with a camera and the courage to use it, a human being who chose, in the worst moment of her life, to act, not for herself, but for a stranger's child. And that had changed everything. The Mercer case triggered a congressional investigation, new oversight procedures for police departments, mandatory body cameras for every officer in Pima County, an independent review board for corruption cases. The Mercer Protocol, named after the man who proved how much damage one dirty cop could do when nobody was watching. Wire's final report: one corrupt officer imprisoned, 18 years, no parole. A 3-year cartel operation exposed and dismantled. $342,000 in illegal payments traced and seized. 8 falsified arrests overturned, victims compensated. 2 murder conspiracies solved. Martin Reyes and Angela Torres, their families finally given answers. 12 additional officers investigated. 19 additional witnesses came forward after the verdict. But the number that mattered most to Kendra was one. One 13-year-old boy who was alive and safe and getting A's in photography because a homeless girl behind a dumpster heard him scream and chose to act instead of hide. Every morning, Kendra woke up in a real bed, in a safe apartment, with food in her refrigerator and hot water in her shower and keys to her own door. Some mornings the nightmares still came. Mercer's boots, 10 feet away, getting closer. But then she'd feel the sheets beneath her, hear the air conditioning, see the morning light through curtains she'd picked out herself, and remember, she was safe. She was seen. She was home. On her desk sat the disposable camera, empty, all 24 exposures used. 4 of them had changed her life. The rest had captured sunsets and shadows and moments of beauty she'd found in the ugliest chapter of her existence. Proof that even at her lowest, she'd been looking for light. Kendra Holloway, 19 years old when she took the photos, 20 now, staff photographer, future college student, honorary family of the Hells Angels Tucson chapter. The girl who spent 6 months being invisible and then, in 90 seconds, became the most important person in a 13-year-old boy's life. Not because she was rescued, because she chose to be the rescuer. And 200 Hells Angels prove what the world keeps forgetting, that sometimes the people who look the most dangerous are the first ones to protect the defenseless. That brotherhood isn't about patches or motorcycles or reputation. It's about showing up when someone needs you and refusing to leave until the fight is over. If you've watched this story to the end, remember this. There's a Kendra sleeping behind a dumpster in your city right now. There's a TJ being hurt by someone who thinks they're untouchable. There's a moment, coming soon, maybe today, where you'll have the same choice Kendra had. Stay hidden, stay safe, walk past, or act. You don't need 200 bikers behind you. You don't need a federal agent or a club president or a legal advisor. You just need to care enough to stop, to pull out your phone and record what you see, to believe the person who's shaking while they tell you something impossible, to be the one who doesn't walk past. Be someone's 90 seconds of courage. Kendra Holloway was invisible for 6 months. Nobody saw her. Nobody helped her. Nobody cared whether she lived or died. And then one night behind a dumpster, she raised a $6 camera and changed everything. Not because she was brave, because she was tired of looking away. That's enough. That's always been enough.